sitting on the cold, rough concrete floor, tightly hugging my knees with trembling, bruised hands. A pulsing, dull pain in the back of my head echoes with every heartbeat, preventing me from thinking clearly and gathering my thoughts. It feels like an eternity has passed since that warm day when I was just walking home after long hours at school. I still replay that fatal minute in my head over and over again, trying to understand exactly where I made the biggest mistake of my life. It was an ordinary day, a painfully familiar street that I had walked down hundreds of times, and a sudden cold, pouring rain. I remember how a clean, well-kept car slowly braked next to me, and the passenger side window smoothly rolled down. The man behind the wheel looked like the most ordinary, decent person. Neat clothes, a tidy haircut, and an incredibly welcoming, completely safe smile. He said he lived nearby and kindly offered to give me a ride all the way home so I wouldn't get completely soaked in the downpour. I hesitated a little, but his calm tone and inviting appearance completely lulled my vigilance, making me believe in ordinary human kindness. But as soon as I sat in the soft passenger seat and the door lock clicked dryly, cutting me off from the outside world, everything around subtly changed. His friendly face was instantly distorted by a cold, inhuman mask, and something dark and truly terrifying appeared in his eyes. I didn't even have time to understand anything or scream before everything suddenly went dark from a strong, precise blow to the head. I woke up already here, in this damp basement thoroughly reeking of old mold and despair, not knowing where I am or what date it is today. My wrists were tightly bound with rough, hard ropes that painfully dug into my skin at the slightest movement, rubbing it raw and bloody. I completely lost track of time because in this cursed place there isn't a single window that could tell me if it's day or night right now. The only source of light here is a dim, dusty bulb under the ceiling, which constantly flickers and emits a quiet, monotonous, maddening hum. Every new day of mine now merges with the previous one into one endless, agonizing torture of constant fear, cold, hunger, and total, maddening isolation. In the corner stands an old plastic bucket, and on the concrete lies a thin, dirty mattress that has become my only refuge in this hell. My days are now measured only by the sound of his heavy footsteps on the upper floor, and the rare times when he comes down to bring me pitiful crumbs of food. Behind the solid wall of the basement lies the frightening, perfect silence of an ordinary suburban home, where, it would seem, absolutely happy, normal people live. Sometimes through the narrow ventilation grate, I hear fragments of his phone conversations, which make my blood run cold with terror. Yesterday, I clearly heard him talking sweetly and tenderly on the phone with his wife Michelle, promising her that he misses her madly and can't wait for her return from California. His voice was so soft, so caring and loving, that everything inside me literally turned upside down from this unthinkable, sick contrast. How can the exact same person be a perfect, loving husband upstairs in a sunlit living room and an absolute, ruthless monster down here in pitch-black basement darkness? Every passing second drags on like long, unbearable hours, and my sanity is slowly but surely beginning to leave me from this constant, primal animal fear and total uncertainty. I increasingly catch myself thinking that I will never see my parents again, never walk into my room, and never hug my mom. That same nauseating sweet scent of his cheap men's cologne hits my nose again, forever etched into the walls of this prison, a sure sign that he will soon come down for me. I hear heavy, measured steps on the wooden staircase, and my heart instantly drops into my stomach, beginning to pound against my ribs with a frantic, almost painful speed. A thin strip of light from the hallway breaks through the narrow gap under the massive metal door, and a heavy key slowly turns in the keyhole with a nasty metallic grinding sound. The door opens with a drawn-out, creaky sound, and he appears on the threshold. Tall, perfectly groomed, in a clean, immaculately ironed light shirt. Playing on his face is that same standard, polite and calm smile that he probably generously gives to his neighbors and colleagues at work every morning. But there is absolutely nothing human in his eyes. They are empty, icy wells reflecting only my sticky, all-consuming fear. He takes a slow, confident step toward me, and I realize with horror that this beautiful family cottage is actually a real monster house, from which I am destined to either escape exactly today or stay here to rot forever. My faintly trembling fingers inconspicuously feel for a sharp, long, rusty nail, which over long hours, rubbing my nails to the blood, I miraculously managed to pull out of an old board in the wall while he slept upstairs. I hide it in my palm until my knuckles turn white, clenching my fist so tightly that the point digs deep into my skin, and hot, sticky blood begins to flow down my arm. He comes closer and closer, looming over me like a dark shadow, and when he leans too close to me, blasting me with his hot breath, I firmly realize this is my only desperate and absolute last chance to survive in this nightmare. I throw up my arm and with all my might plunge the rusty point right into his shoulder, pushing his heavy body away toward the open door. POV of the perpetrator, Daniel. I leisurely adjust my expensive tie in front of the large, brightly lit mirror in the hallway, carefully studying my reflection, and remain absolutely, completely satisfied with what I see before me. A perfect, even parting, a freshly shaven face with a light scent of good aftershave, the calm and confident gaze of a successful, respectable design engineer. I have an excellent, high-paying job, a beautiful house in a quiet suburb, and from the outside, it seems my life is in full swing and everything is going strictly according to plan. My dear, beloved wife, Michelle, had once again flown away to visit her numerous relatives, leaving me to submissively miss her all alone in our large, incredibly cozy family nest. She is so naive, pure, and endlessly trusting that she sincerely believes my every word about how I work hard on complex projects and therefore get so tired in the evenings that I don't even leave the house. As I carefully tie the knot of my tie, I involuntarily recall that rainy, gloomy day when I first noticed the lonely, soaked figure of a schoolgirl on the side of the road. I remember that sweet, intoxicating shiver of anticipation that instantly ran through my body from the realization of this lucky, so easy opportunity to add to my secret collection. Luring her into my car was a piece of cake. People these days are so stupid and easily fall for a neat appearance, an expensive car, and the welcoming, caring smile of a stranger. I find it even a little funny and simultaneously sad how incredibly easy and simple it is to deceive everyone around when you know exactly which right mask to show them today. My neighbors down the street see me only as an exemplary family man, a model and law-abiding citizen who will always greet them politely upon meeting and gladly help carry heavy bags to the door. They often invite me to barbecues, shake my hand, smile, but even in their worst nightmares, they have no idea exactly what is hidden behind the beautiful, well-kept facade of my home. They don't know what happens inside when the thick, heavy blinds are lowered on the windows and the front doors are tightly locked with all the deadbolts, cutting this house off from the rest of the boring world. This secret, carefully hidden double life intoxicates me far more than any, even the most expensive and strong alcohol, granting an inexpressibly sweet feeling of absolute power and total, unconditional impunity. For several long days now, my new little living toy has been sitting downstairs in the damp basement, completely broken, dirty, and terrified, submissively awaiting my next return from work. Every time my wife goes out of town to see her relatives, this ordinary house instantly sheds its boring shell and turns into my personal, hidden kingdom. Here I set all the rules. Here there are no laws or morals. Here I am a real, almighty God who solely decides who gets to rejoice today, and who suffers, who lives, and who dies. I look at the beautiful framed photo of smiling Michelle on the mantelpiece and experience a strange, sick, but very pleasant feeling of superiority over her total, absolute blindness towards me. I grab the heavy bunch of keys for the basement door from the nightstand, feeling that same, painfully familiar, nerve-thrilling shiver slowly and warmly spreading throughout my entire body. I walk down the wooden steps of the staircase, deliberately stepping on them louder than usual, with all my weight, and sincerely savor every sound of my heavy, measured footsteps. I do this on purpose because I know exactly what chilling, paralyzing terror and panic these sounds cause in the one sitting downstairs right now in total darkness, awaiting my mercy. Slowly, savoring the moment, I open the heavy door and see how she pitifully shrinks into a ball in the darkest, dampest corner, like a small, defenseless, trapped little animal, awaiting an inevitable, cruel blow. But today, peering into her tear-stained, inflamed eyes, besides the usual, expected animal fear and submission, I suddenly notice something else there that wasn't there before. It's some strange, desperate, and completely wild, unpredictable glint that confuses me for a second and breaks my usual scenario of domination. I take a confident step closer, intending to quickly teach her another painful, memorable lesson in total obedience and break this sudden spark of defiance in her gaze. But suddenly, instead of the expected tears and begging, I feel a sharp, burning, unbearable pain in my shoulder that makes me catch my breath for a moment, and my vision darkens. She unexpectedly lunges at me with the fierce, crazy fury of a cornered wildcat, and before I have time to orient myself and intercept her thin arm, she pushes me against the rough concrete wall with all her remaining strength. This bold, unbelievable strike completely catches me off guard. I lose my balance on the slippery floor and fall heavily with all my weight onto the dirty concrete, hitting the back of my head very painfully against the cold, hard stone. Through the growing, deafening roar and piercing ringing in my ears, I clearly hear her bare feet rapidly and loudly running up the old, creaky stairs towards the saving daylight. The heavy front door slams loudly, forcefully letting the cold, fresh street air of freedom she just tore from my hands into my closed, perfect home. And lying on the dirty basement floor, Feeling the warm blood slowly trickling down the back of my head, I suddenly realize one simple truth with chilling, paralyzing horror. My perfect, calibrated life, my flawless facade carefully and lovingly built over the years, my absolute power and invulnerability, all of this has just collapsed, shattering to pieces forever. POV of the deceived wife, Michelle. The California sun shines brightly, and I drink my morning coffee on my parents' porch with a smile, enjoying a quiet and peaceful vacation. My husband Daniel stayed home in Georgia because, as always, he was too busy with his important engineering projects. He is so hardworking, so caring and devoted. Just yesterday, he called me in the evening, saying he madly misses my laugh and is counting the days until my return. The silence of the warm morning is suddenly interrupted by a sharp, persistent phone ring that makes me flinch and spill hot coffee on the table. I pick up the receiver and hear the strict, completely emotionless voice of a police detective on the other end of the line. He asks me to sit down and, in a dry, official tone, begins asking strange, frightening questions about my husband, about our house, and whether we have a basement. My heart instantly drops somewhere down below, and everything blurs before my eyes when the detective utters the words kidnapping, rape, and the basement of your house. The air suddenly becomes thick and heavy. I physically cannot take a breath, frantically grasping for emptiness with my mouth. The man I shared a bed with, whom I built plans for the future with, and whom I considered the perfect spouse, turned out to be a cold-blooded sadist and maniac. I fly back home on the very first flight and see my beautiful, well-kept cottage cordoned off with yellow police tape, like a scene from a cheap crime movie. People in white hazmat suits carry boxes of evidence out of my home, while dozens of reporters with cameras trample on the lawn. Neighbors look at me with a mixture of pity and disgust, and only one unbearable, destructive thought beats in my head. All this time, while I peacefully slept on the second floor, cooked breakfasts, and laughed at his jokes, a real, utter hell was unfolding right beneath me, in the damp basement. For years, I lived under the same roof with a monster, kissed his lips, and never even suspected what inhuman darkness hid behind his perfect, polite smile. POV of the investigator. My radio crackles with an emergency call. A teenage girl ran out onto the road in hysterics, barefoot in torn clothes, with bleeding wrists and signs of beatings. We immediately drive to the address she provided and park outside a beautiful, neat house in the most prosperous, quiet neighborhood of the city. A perfectly manicured lawn, fresh paint on the walls, a welcoming doormat at the front entrance. Nothing betrays the horror lurking inside. We break the locks, burst inside with guns drawn, but the house is absolutely empty. The suspect had already managed to flee, realizing he had been exposed. We go down the wooden steps into the basement, and our noses are immediately hit by the heavy, stale smell of stagnant sweat, fear, and cheap perfume. In the dim light of a single bulb, I see a scene that makes the blood run cold even for me, a police officer with many years of experience. A dirty, tear-soaked mattress is thrown right onto the concrete floor. A bucket stands in the corner, and thick, rough ropes are tied to massive metal rings in the wall. Various tools are neatly laid out on the wooden beams, as if this is not the basement of a residential home, but a specially equipped torture chamber of a sadistic maniac. I look at this carefully organized nightmare and realize that this is far from the first time. This man had everything polished to an automatic routine. He led a double life for years, skillfully deceiving his wife, neighbors, and colleagues, hiding his rotten, monstrous essence behind the mask of a successful engineer. We declare a multi-state manhunt, send out bulletins, and pray to catch this scum before he finds himself a new victim. The POV of the fugitive perpetrator, Daniel. Night has swallowed the highway, and for several days now, I have been driving my car non-stop towards Texas, away from my ruined life. My eyes are sticking together. My eyelids weigh a ton, and instead of blood, only pure sticky adrenaline mixed with animal fear pulses through my veins. My genius plan, my perfect disguise, all of it was blown to pieces because of one slip-up, because of one weak girl who dared to fight back. The radio constantly broadcasts my name. My photo is shown on all news channels. I am no longer a respected engineer, but a hunted beast that the whole country is searching for. There's almost no gas left, and my exhaustion is so immense that I'm already starting to see hallucinations right on the dark asphalt. I park on some desolate shoulder in Houston, lean the seat back, and decide to close my eyes for just a couple of minutes to at least slightly recover my strength. The silence of the cabin is suddenly cut by a sharp, deafening knock on the window from the driver's side. I abruptly open my eyes and see the bright light of a police flashlight shining through the murky glass directly into my face, blinding and disorienting me. The barrel of a gun presses against the glass, and a strict voice orders me to immediately raise my hands so they are visible. At that moment, I realize with a leaden weight that my personal play has come to an end. The curtain has fallen, and the masks have finally been dropped.
Putting emotions aside, let's turn to the official reports and materials of this terrifying investigation. The perpetrator is Richard Daniel Starrett, a married man working as a design engineer in Georgia, whose biography seemed flawless from the outside. The investigation reliably established that Starrett systematically used his wife Michelle's trips to turn their cozy family home into a literal prison. That same 17-year-old girl who miraculously managed to escape from his basement was lucky to stay alive and lead the police to the maniac's doorstep. However, during the further investigation, much darker episodes of his secret life came to light. It was proven that Richard Starrett was guilty not only of a series of kidnappings and rapes, but also of the brutal murder of 15-year-old Jean Taylor McCrea. After the escape of his last captive, he panicked, went on the run, and tried to lay low, but was ultimately discovered by police sleeping in his car in Houston, Texas. Ultimately, the justice system delivered its verdict. Starrett avoided the death penalty but received multiple life sentences in the states of Georgia and South Carolina. To this day, he continues to serve his sentence behind bars at the Department of Corrections without the slightest hope of ever walking free. Psychological breakdown. Try to shake off the tension of what you just heard, take a sip of water, and let's try to look into the underside of this crime together. The case of Richard Starrett is not just a story of a maniac, it's a textbook on extreme psychological compartmentalization. This pathology allows the human brain to build solid, impenetrable walls between different parts of its personality. That is precisely why he could sincerely take an interest in his wife's day, sweetly discuss plans for the evening with her, and a minute later go down to the basement, transforming into an absolutely heartless executioner. For such predators, a normal life is nothing more than a theatrical set, a necessary smokescreen that allows them to hunt in the shadows unhindered. In his distorted worldview, his victims lost their status as human beings, turning merely into expendable material to satisfy his thirst for total, boundless control. The most terrifying aspect of this mechanism is the absence of any internal conflict, as the monster and the exemplary husband existed in his head in parallel, never intersecting. Author's commentary and outro. We all want to believe that evil has a recognizable face, that we will always be able to spot danger from afar. but this case serves as a cold shower for all of us. The most destructive demons often hide behind immaculately ironed shirts and polite neighborly smiles. Our channel's mission remains unchanged. We tear off these false masks so that you can learn from someone else's unbearably painful experience without repeating these mistakes in reality. Learn to listen to your sixth sense, and if the perfect picture of someone's life sends an inexplicable chill down your spine, do not rush to suppress that instinct. This was the Victim Path Project, where we continue to explore the darkest labyrinths of the human psyche. If this episode gave you a lot to think about, show us your support and type the code word Monster House in the comments so we can spot our most dedicated viewers. Stay safe, trust your intuition, and see you soon in a new investigation.